would like to thank everyone for joining today, and we are very excited to connect with you virtually. We know it's a difficult season, but we are here with the live Q&A series to hopefully help guide you through these times. Today we will be talking about the 5 phases of the job search. This is the second session of our live Q&A series. Following today, the remainder of the series will include LinkedIn tips on August 4th, after the interview, and beyond the basics on August 13th. All of these will take place at 12 p.m. on the Career Services Facebook page. Last week's session, Virtual Interviews, is now available on our YouTube channel, so you can go and check that out. Our YouTube channel is Tarleton Careers. It's also posted here on our Facebook page under our video recordings. So we wanted to hear from you, and that's what this whole series is about. So we have a survey that we have sent out to everyone, and if you have not seen that survey, I will post that survey link in the comments after we publish this video. So feel free to submit questions through that survey for the remaining of the series. And I want to thank all of you who have submitted already. You can continue to submit questions through the live feature during this video though, and we will work on answering those towards the end of the video. So depending on the volume of questions, we will do our very best to address all of them as time allows. So with that being said, we will begin with introductions and topics, and then answer the submitted questions that were submitted ahead of time, and then we'll go into the live questions. So at any time during this video, go ahead and submit your questions that you have related to job search, and we will address those towards the end. All resources mentioned will be posted along with the recording of this event on our website and YouTube channel. So I will begin with the introductions. My name's Taisha Chandler, and I am the Marketing and Outreach Coordinator. I've been with Career Services for a little over 2 years. I guess I'm almost to 2.5 years. I am a Tarleton alumni class of 2016. Before moving on, I wanted to discuss a little bit about job fairs, and I'm sure a lot of you have been wondering if we will have job fairs. We will be having them, and we are mostly going to do virtual, but we will be releasing that calendar as we keep discussing. It's not set in stone yet, so just stay tuned and check our website, www.tarleton.edu/careers. And then also check Handshake frequently for our job fairs and events, service updates, and resources. And now I'm going to pass it over to Alana.
Hi, everybody. I'm Alana Hefner, and I'm the Director of Career Services, and I've been on campus for 13 years, but I've been in this department as the director for 10. And I'm excited to say every year we have new changes, and this year is no exception. So please, as Taisha had mentioned, please check back to our website, because we're going to have some new innovative services coming to you starting in the fall and in the spring, and then a whole menu of other services in the years to come. So thanks for being here today.
Hi, I'm Doug Smith. I'm the Assistant Director of Career Development. I have been here going on 5 years now, and plus a little bit of time as an intern, a few years before that. I'm a one-time alumni, and I received my bachelor's from another university that I won't advertise for. One service that I want to just throw out there that's relevant to job search is our Career Cafe. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically you can talk to a student career coach about career or major exploration, job search, resumes, interviews, or really any other career-related topics. And you can still be 6 feet from each other and do this as well. Right now, you can drop in virtually on Zoom. And as Taisha mentioned, you can find the link on the website. And it's Monday through Friday, 11 to 1. But when school starts, we're going to offer both ways. You can come in person or virtually. Same time, Monday through Friday, 11 to 1. So that's just one little thing I wanted to throw out there for now. Marcus.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Marcus Taylor. I'm the Job Locator and Development Coordinator. I've been with Career Services for about a year now, and I am a Tarleton alumni. While I have the quote unquote microphone, I want to say, for those of you who don't know, Handshake is the only place that connects you, your school, and your employers together. So it's provided so you can connect with thousands of employers, local and across the United States. So the jobs on Handshake are meant for students like you. So there are jobs where little to no experience is going to be required. If you haven't already, make sure to go to tarleton.joinhandshake.com to claim your account with your student email and complete your profile. Don't forget to upload a resume and make your profile public so employers can view your resume and your experience. So we are launching a series of Handshake tutorial videos on the Career Services YouTube channel, Tarleton Careers, to help with commonly asked questions. So make sure to subscribe to see when new videos are uploaded. All right, Rachel.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Rachel Snyder. I'm the Career Development Coordinator for our College of Business Administration. I've been with Career Services for a little over a year, and I am a Tarleton alum. I'm going to take just a moment to talk to you about kind of the job search in general to help kind of start generating some questions and some ideas from y'all, some things y'all might be wondering about. So when you hear the term job search, I want you to think of it in 5 phases. The first phase is the research phase. You're not looking at actual open positions yet. You're looking at what you're interested in. You're discovering new industries and positions that you may not have even known existed. And you're basically just doing a lot of research to start trying to decide what it is you're even interested in. We do have a few resources available for that online. There's the My Plan, which in addition to having a career assessment for you, it also has some career exploration tools. All right, so there's the My Plan, there's ONET, and there's the Occupational Outlook Handbook. Certainly not all of them, but it is a few of the really popular ones. Once you've kind of decided what it is that you want to do, you need to start engaging in the actual search itself. And a great way to do that is through Handshake, which Marcus talked about a little bit. You can also check out local places like your local Chamber of Commerce and different local online job boards, or there may be a place you can go in town in person to find jobs, right? There's a lot of resources out there. And another that I want to mention is social media, especially LinkedIn. That's a great place to look for jobs online right now. It's become extremely popular. Okay, so once you've decided on what positions you want to apply for, you have to apply, right? So that means you need to tailor your resume, you need to get all of your documents together, you need to create a system to keep everything organized, and you have to research the company that you're applying to, right? Research the position. So these are all a few big steps before you even apply for the job. And then of course there's interviewing. So if you're getting ready to interview, you can always come to us for assistance. And that goes of course for every other step that I'm talking about. But we do specifically have some mock interviews that you could schedule to prepare for an interview that you have. And then once you're done interviewing, you're still not quite finished. You need to follow up after that interview. That includes writing a thank you letter within that first 24 hours after an interview. And it includes checking in with the employer if, say, a few weeks pass and you were supposed to hear from them and you haven't. You want to check back in with them and make sure that you're up to date on the information about that job. So those are kind of the 5 different phases that you're going to go through with the job search. And with that, to kind of get your wheels turning, I'm going to turn it back over to Taisha.
Thank you all. Before we jump into the Q&A, I just want to go ahead and let you all know, whoever's watching, if you feel like you have friends or family that could benefit from this video, please share it and hopefully they'll catch it. Also, if you like what we are saying, please give us a thumbs up or heart the video. And with that being said, we're going to start off with the pre-submitted questions that we received, and then we will go into the live questions. So once again, please ask us your questions about job search in the comments, and we will answer those in a bit. So with question number 1, are there any opportunities for students to work on campus, or where would one get an on-campus job? Alana?
Yes, thank you. So yes, there are plenty of opportunities on and off campus. And so Marcus had mentioned Handshake earlier. I want to direct you to Handshake. Handshake has thousands of opportunities, and we also use it for local opportunities. So our local employment, our local employers, either around the Waco, Fort Worth, Midlothian, Stephenville campuses, can use Handshake in order to post their positions for part-time positions. And then, as I said, there are thousands out there looking and recruiting actively for the full-time positions. But as far as looking for on-campus work, Handshake is a really good tool to start with, because it allows you to see in one setting what positions are available. Now, we'll also tell you that not every department on campus posts in Handshake because they get enough applications coming to their door. But what I would say is, as you're using Handshake and more departments continue to onboard and decide to post their positions in Handshake, that you'll need to make sure that you're being cautious or keeping your eye open for different keywords. So when you're looking for an on-campus position, it may be phrased something like student worker or intern to learn, or it could just be an internship on campus. You could, again, you just have to pay attention to the wording, because some departments have a different title for each position. We are actually in the process of hiring another position in our office that will focus specifically on campus and work study positions, so that students who do qualify for the financial aid work study portion can have a one-stop shop where they can come to our office and learn how they can use their work study if they qualify for work study, and then what positions are available for work study students. So more to come on that. That position is not quite in place, but more to come. We are very excited about that partnership with financial aid, and we look forward to getting that new person in place. Again, with other departments that don't specifically post in Handshake, what we always encourage students to do is then to just do the tour of campus. If you know that, let's say you're a math major, well, then I would encourage you to go to the math clinic and to the math department and dress nicely, take a resume, and take a copy of your schedule and walk in and ask them, are you hiring at this point? If not, I'm extremely interested. Can I leave my resume and my class schedule with you so that maybe you could follow up with me later? I'll check back in a couple of weeks, and then you turn around and you walk away, of course, if the conversation has ended. So just because a position is not posted in Handshake doesn't mean that the other departments are off limits. It just means that they are relying on the face-to-face contact at that moment to collect and gather resumes and applications. One quick tip, that if you are thinking, well, I'm new to campus, or I haven't really ever made a big boy, big girl resume, then you can always drop into our virtual cafe, as Doug had mentioned earlier, for some tips. And then we're also going to be rolling out an artificial intelligence resume critiquing system called VMOC in the next coming weeks, where you can just upload your resume and it will critique it for you. But never feel like that we're trying to push you to technology to take away the human element, because we do feel like we can still offer some wonderful assistance and provide you that personalized feedback in the Career Cafe. So please join us and ask your questions, anything to do with the job search, anything on campus, how to complete a resume, and those types of questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Alana. Question number 2. Is it better to apply for a job in person or online? Marcus?
All right, so that's a great question. So some companies are going to be different. Local employers that are interested in hiring part-time students may not have the funds, the time, or the tech savvy to actually post a position online. So before you do go to apply in person, or really any job that you would be applying to, you need to create a resume that is tailored to that specific position. So dress professionally for the position as well if you're going in to talk to the employer. Research the company, because they might immediately ask you to do a quick interview while you're on their site. You will find that most companies, especially now, will have online applications that do not require or allow you to apply on site. If the position is posted on an online site such as Indeed, I would suggest going to the company website directly to apply for that position. Personally, I prefer applying in person because it really helps build a connection with that right person. But during COVID-19, I would not advise going in if there is an option to do an online application.
Thank you, Marcus. Moving on to question number 3. How early should one begin job searching while completing a degree? Rachel?
That's such a great question. And it actually has a couple of different answers depending on a couple of different factors. So I'm going to kind of break it down in 2 ways. So this question might be about internships. So we'll hit internships first. It's going to depend upon the company, how early you should start applying. And it's going to depend on the industry, right? So for some companies and some industries, they're not going to be recruiting for internships until maybe the summer after your sophomore or the summer after your junior year. Other companies may be completely willing to have freshman interns. So that doesn't mean that if you're a freshman that you're ineligible for interns. Also, there are some industries that are extremely competitive. Some of the big 5 accounting firms are known to start recruiting for their summer after your sophomore year internships as early as your freshman year. So that means even if you don't want an internship till later on, you've got to start getting ready for it pretty much as soon as you hit college, right? So there isn't a super specific answer I can give as in start on the October of your freshman year, that's the time. It takes a little bit of research on your part to decide your industry, which is where I will plug Handshake, because that's a great place where you can check out a lot of those positions and see what the eligibility requirements are. So let's move from internships to actual jobs, right? So post-graduation, full-time work is what I'm talking about here. And that's a question that everybody has at some point during their college career. And again, it's going to depend on the company and the industry that you want to go into, right? Some you'll have to start applying for earlier. Some can be closer to graduation. But a good rule of thumb would be to start thinking about it and preparing at the beginning of your senior year, whenever that might be, whether that's the fall or the spring or the summer. Start getting ready, start getting your documents together, start getting your references together, start doing your research, right? Start actively participating in phases 1 and 2 of the job search that I talked about at the beginning. And then by your last semester, you need to be actively engaged in that job search process where you're applying pretty consistently and starting to get those interviews. But again, it's going to depend on your industry. For some of y'all that are in super competitive industries, you may even need to bump that back to your junior year, all right? And if you've got any specific questions, like maybe you're an education major, maybe you're a chemistry major, you can always hop into our career cafe and talk to a coach directly about that, all right? So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Rachel. Question number 4. Is it appropriate to write thank you notes or thank you emails to your interviewers when applying for advanced level positions? Doug?
Yes, so the short answer is yes, it is appropriate. And to elaborate on that, I'd say handwritten notes they do stand out and they're highly recommended, but email thank you notes are also acceptable. So it is a little bit more common for email note, but the handwritten does still stand out. It will definitely separate you from the candidate pool. Not many employers will receive a handwritten thank you note. And one thing I want to add to that is make sure you send them out as soon as possible. Email or handwritten, you don't want them making a decision and then they receive the handwritten thank you note 2 weeks after they make a decision. So go ahead and send the email or the handwritten note as soon as possible. I would say if you know they're going to make a decision in a day or 2, probably don't put something in the mailbox. Probably go ahead and send them a quick email, and that will totally help you out in that process. To elaborate a little bit on the second part, you asked about the advanced level positions? Is it appropriate for advanced level positions? I say yes at all levels. Part-time from the bottom to the top, from the top to the bottom. I'd say a thank you note is always appropriate. And even more so now because people don't receive thank you notes that often anymore. So it's just a nice surprise and it really does help. I'd say a little free tip that you didn't ask for, but I'm gonna throw out there anyways, is if I'm gonna write 5 different thank you notes, make sure they're not all the same. Make sure I include something personal to each person's note, not personal about my favorite color, but more so, thank you for this opportunity. I really liked how you described the positivity of the team. I truly believe I could contribute to that team or contribute to the positivity of that team. So if you interview with 5 different people on a committee, they will all have 5 different points that you might remember. And it just makes it a little bit more personalized than a standard copy and paste thank you note. And one little additional thing is all the things that we talk about today is not one thing is going to get you the job or get you an interview. You can say, well, I've got the job before without a thank you note or without a tailored resume. And that's possible for sure. But when it gets really competitive, you want to make sure you check every box you can. Tailor resume, thank you note, great attire. And because when it's between you and the next person, that might be the one thing that kind of tips you over. So just keep all that in mind. And I think this answers that question. So
Thank you, Doug. Okay, so I just want to go ahead and remind everyone that's watching, please submit your questions live right now. We'll be happy to address those. With that being said, we're going to move on into some more questions. So how many jobs should I apply for a day? Rachel.
All right, that's another great question. So if you're currently engaged in the job search, maybe you just graduated or you're about to graduate, and so you are applying for a lot of different full-time positions, a lot of students may start feeling some burnout, right? Because it can be really difficult to sit at your computer staring at it for hour after hour while you submit applications. So this is going to be one of those moments where you need to know your personality. If you're really great with having a set number of tasks, then you might say, I'm going to apply for 5 jobs today, right? And then after I do that, I'm done. No matter how long it takes, right? Because sometimes a job application will take you 15 minutes, sometimes it'll take you an hour and a half. It just depends on the system. So if you're a person that if you hit that point where you have an hour and a half job application and that really frustrates you, give yourself a set number of hours instead, right? I'm gonna work on job applications for 2 hours today. And then in the afternoon, I'm going to work on my LinkedIn presence for an hour and break it up that way instead. Just kind of do it based on what feels right for you. Maybe do it based on the way that you used to study while you were in school. That can be really helpful. Also, make sure to take frequent breaks, right? Staring at a computer for a long period of time can make us all feel a little fuzzy after a while. So look away from your screen, go get a glass of water, take 15 minutes for yourself, and then get back at it, okay? Also, I want to make sure that in addition to kind of organizing the way that you think about doing these job applications, make sure that you have a system for keeping track of everything, because you're going to have a different resume or at least a slightly altered resume for every job application. So have a system where you keep track of that, right? Maybe you name everything company, comma, position, comma, my name, right? And keep track of the actual job application itself. That way later you can remember the date where you applied for that job, or maybe the date that the position closed, so you know you should be looking for an email from them. There are some different pieces of software you can use. You can use a Notes app. You can use an Excel document. There is an app called Jibber Jobber. There is a free version. There's a $5 version. And that is actually an organization tool for the job search. So if you want to use something like an app, there are options. So I hope that was helpful to our questioner.
Okay, so next question. Should I follow up after the interview? And if so, when? Doug?
yes, that's a great question. So definitely we generally say about 2 weeks after, unless you know they won't be making a decision for longer. If they specifically tell you, we'll get back with you in about a month, probably don't call them in 2 weeks and ask what they've decided. But I wouldn't do it less than 2 weeks either, because that thank you note that I talked about will kind of suffice that kind of personal connection. So definitely reach out. Definitely, and a lot of questions. Someone asked a question of what do I say if I call? Do I just say, did you pick me? Who did you hire? So we just say be courteous, be professional, and just ask about the status of the position. For me, I would just say, hi, I'm Doug Smith. I interviewed for this position a few weeks ago. I was just interested in the status of this position. Or I was curious if a decision has been made yet. And that way it doesn't sound too forceful, too accusatory of like, well, I haven't heard nothing back, so just wondering what's going on. And it kind of doesn't back the employer into a corner. And it also allows the employer to disclose as much or as little as possible. So if they're still in the middle of a decision, they can answer by saying, oh, it's still pending, as opposed to, well, we are deciding between one of two people and you're not one of them. So it just lets them answer in a more vague way until a decision's made. And maybe that call, that very professional call that you make, it might jog the memory and go, oh, I remember him or I remember her. Maybe we should consider them because no one else has called back. So it just kind of puts yourself out there as well. And it lets you know, it helps you sleep at night. You might find out you did not get the job and you can move on with some strategies that Rachel talked about. At the end of the interview, after you ask all your fantastic questions that we help you with, we always recommend just ask for a timeline. The very last question can be, so what do you think the next steps will look like in this process? And they'll probably tell you, oh, well, we might give you a call in about 2 weeks, or you might hear from us in about a week. And that will also help you know if you should call, if you should reach out to them or not. And as I said, you definitely still use a thank you note, no matter what. So, and that will just help kind of keep, it kind of not only is it professional and courteous, but it helps kind of put you back in their mind again. Because we all know, and I've been there, we've all applied for 100 different jobs and we just wait back and see what happens. And sometimes nothing happens. So you have to be proactive and reach out and not annoying, but just be strategically proactive and just help put your name out there. So I think that might answer that question.
Thank you, Doug. We did receive a couple of live questions. I just want to let those of you who asked, we will be answering those shortly. We have another question, a couple more questions before we get to the live questions, and then we will answer your questions, okay? So is applying for part-time jobs different from full-time jobs? Marcus?
Yes, you're going to love to answer. Yes and no, or depending on the company. I know I'm very committed to that. So you can still find part-time jobs on Indeed and company websites. But just so you know, a lot of companies such as fast food, restaurants, grocery stores, gas stations, a lot of them still really rely on word of mouth to find most of their candidates. So they don't put a lot of effort into marketing those positions. If you are interested in finding a part-time position, I would highly recommend using Handshake. I know it's like the 5th time we've said that today. But Handshake is designed for companies to post jobs and internships directly to students. So I'd also recommend calling or visiting those local businesses to ask if they have any part-time positions available. So to fill out an application, you should still put that same amount of time and effort into creating a tailored resume to that job. And once again, dress professionally at the interview as well.
Thank you. Okay, and another question is, where should I look for jobs? Alana?
So the list is endless. So I'm going to hit on a few of them. Some of them are going to be obvious, some of them not as obvious. So I'll start with Handshake. I think we beat that horse, but definitely look in Handshake. There are over, I think in the month of May, we saw that there were over 1,100 full-time jobs posted in Handshake just in May alone. So always use Handshake as a resource. I think Rachel had mentioned and dropped in the Chambers of Commerce website. So depending on if you live in Keller, or you live in Hewitt, or you live in Waco or Brownwood, most communities have a Chamber of Commerce or a small business development center where they like an incubator where you can reach out to them and they can tell you the new companies that are in town. And then a lot of times they have listings and direct links from their website to different companies on campus. So for instance, Stephenville Chamber of Commerce has a direct link for jobs that anybody in the community or anybody on the website can go and look. Definitely want to look at local and small businesses. Not all businesses have, or especially small businesses, they don't always have a website presence. And so sometimes that is a door-to-door action. It's also a social media as well, because some of the smaller shops or boutiques or just smaller companies may have social media, but they may not have a website, or vice versa. So make sure that you're looking at the smaller businesses as well, and not just at Fortune 500s. That leads me to my next point, which is a personal network. The personal network that you create is invaluable. And when I say personal network, I mean personal network that are made of professionals that can vouch for what you are capable of doing. It's one thing to have a neighbor that has known you and liked you all of your life, but they really have never seen you work, watched you work, or you've not done any work for them. So make sure that you are connecting with them, because perhaps they have an occupation that you're interested in. They may be able to then say, you know, this young man, this young woman has lived next to me for several years. I always see he or she is involved with this activity and this activity. He leaves early, comes in late, always busy. And my nephew is in a business that the neighbor is interested in. So that is a way that you can start looking at your personal connections and network. Definitely pay attention to your Tarleton faculty and staff members. They are a part of your network. Sometimes it can be, some students find it intimidating to go and talk to a faculty member about their experience. Tell me where you've worked. Many of our faculty have worked outside of higher education and have worked in the industry, and they too have contacts. So never exclude Tarleton staff and Tarleton faculty in your network. Family members, aunts, uncles, foster parents, brothers, sisters, their wives, their brothers' wives, and those types of things. When you start looking at people through a different lens of a business interest or a professional interest, then you will be surprised at how many connections you actually can have, and very intentional, and what we call a warm contact. So you're not just calling up a random person and saying, hey, tell me about your job. You're having a warm handshake, if you will, from my cousin is going to introduce me to their colleague at work, because that's the connection. So your network is actually very deep and wide. We just sometimes forget to look at those people. Other things to contend with and to think about is attending networking events. So whether we're in COVID-19 and we're putting everything in a virtual standpoint, or there are some smaller, more intimate settings where we're having networking events with employers on campus, please look to those. You can always check our website. Some companies come on campus specifically through our office, and then they will reach out to other members of the campus as well. So always check the website for updated information. You can always look at niche websites such as USA Jobs, job search engines like Indeed, Glassdoor, getthegig.com, CareerBuilder, Monster. Those are your typical ones. Many students from Tarleton State have received job offers off of Indeed and off of Monster that are legitimate. So don't ever rule those out because they're big and monstrous, if you will. But there are, we have a website on our student resources website for job seekers that we have a huge list of the smaller job seeking sites that you can look at, such as Get the Gig. I believe Rachel had mentioned LinkedIn. I can tell you that there are many companies that post their jobs exclusively on LinkedIn. So it is extremely important, especially in this digital age, to have a well-versed LinkedIn profile, that which you keep up, and it's not passive. You're in there and you are connecting to people in the industry that you're interested in, following people, companies that you are interested in, following bloggers, following different webinars that are in the vein in which you're interested in. So it is a tool that we can't promote enough. But if you will look on our website, we do have videos on how to guide you through creating your profile and how to keep it sharp. And last but not least is social media. There are companies that post only on Facebook, only on Twitter for their positions. So I can say that one quick tip that we have is that on Facebook jobs, you can find that under the talent tab in Facebook. And Twitter is also helpful for networking and job searching. Again, you're going to want to look at hashtags, certain keywords for hashtags, and different people in the industry that you can follow. And that's just, I took like 10 different tips and shoved them down your throat. And I hope that that moves you to the next question, if you will.
Thank you, Alana. So at this time, we are going to move into the live questions that you have submitted. So we are going to start with Rebecca's question. What are the best activities to be a part of while at Tarleton to make your resume look better? Rachel?
All right, yeah, so I'm really excited about this question. There are so many different activities available at Tarleton State University. And I know based on whether or not you're at the Stephenville campus or the Fort Worth campus, or maybe you're a non-traditional student or you're an incoming freshman, you may have different levels of knowledge of what's out there. So one of the best ways to even find out what you can be a part of is to go to Texan Sync on our website, which is where a lot of organizations have an active presence and announce when their meetings are and things like that. Right now, since most things are going to be virtual, that'll be a great tool as well, because the meetings may not be the way they usually, look. Now, as far as what activities will make your resume look better, of course, work experience is invaluable. We've talked quite a bit about the different places to look for jobs, so I'm not going to get too much into that. But what I would say is, especially if you are primarily looking at ways to get more experience in your industry, or you're trying to decide what it is that you want to do, try to find positions that are relevant to your field, right? For example, if you want to be a teacher after graduation, look at the local school districts and see if you can substitute, right? That'll be a great way to start to learn what grades you might want to teach, or to make sure you still want to teach, right? So those are the types of positions you might look for as far as jobs go. Other activities can include academic clubs. A lot of majors will have a club where y'all can get together and socialize and talk about what is going on in your industry. There are honor societies. There are clubs based on your interests, right? All of those are valid options. Don't feel like you need to only pick the work-related activities or the academic-related activities. Employers want to know that they're hiring well-rounded graduates. So make sure, most importantly, that what you get involved in interests you, whether it's volunteering or participating in a club. Make sure that it's something you actually want to be part of, right, to build your resume. Another type of activity that you might look into getting involved with isn't technically a resume booster, but it's a network builder, so it's important. And those are those networking events. If you're on the Stephenville campus in the fall, I will tell you, our local Chamber of Commerce had its very first in-person chamber mixer yesterday, which they haven't had since the COVID epidemic started. So some places are starting to find ways to get together outside with masks on, right? Things like that. And that would be a way where you can go start to build those connections. That's not something that'll go on your resume, but that is a way to start to build those warm contacts that will help find you positions later on.
Could I add to that as well?
Sure.
Rachel, you laid that out beautifully, and I just wanted to drill in on one of the things. So when I meet with students, I want to make sure that they understand that if you're not able to find a part-time position in the field that you're wanting to go in, that's okay. Employers tell us time and time again that they're looking for a work ethic and that you have been accountable to somebody and that you're able to take constructive criticism. So when you're a cashier, when you're a wait staff, when you are a car hop, when you are working in sales and you have a supervisor, those are very lucrative positions. Lucrative, not money, but in marketable skills for you to be able to take then to your big boy, big girl interview and to promote yourself. I may not have experience in my specific major, but let me kind of talk to you about how I took a project at this part-time position and I grew it and I made it my own, and this was the constructive criticism that I received and thus and such. So employers time and time again will tell us, I would rather a student worked part-time as a car hop or wait staff than to not have work history at all. Now that doesn't mean that those of you who don't have work history not going to get a good position. It just means that then you're going to be leaning on more heavily some of the activities. And so just to touch on one other thing that Rachel had mentioned, as you're looking at what activities you should look at to help your resume, make sure that whatever you do, whatever you join, that you want to excel. So it's not enough to just be a member, you need to be an active member. So because when you put that on your resume, that then opens it up for an employer to ask you about it. And the best thing that you can do is say, yes, I was a member of XYZ organization and I assisted with this and I assisted with that. And this is how that I made a difference. How that could go is if you joined an organization just to get it, the one line item on your website, on your resume as a member, and then they ask you about it and you have to say, yeah, I just kind of showed up and we didn't do much, then maybe you need to look for a different organization. So make sure that whatever you're joining, whatever positions you're getting into, that you're making them work for you and that you're digging into those marketable skills and transferable skills.
All right, thank you both. We're gonna move to Courtney's question. I'm in my last year of a master's program and have been actively applying. I get a lot of underqualified emails. How do I know what types of positions I'm qualified for? Should I be looking at entry-level positions? Also, I'm going to go ahead and tie in, it's basically very similar. Miranda asks, a lot of entry-level jobs require experience. How can I gain experience to my career field? So those kind of go hand in hand. So I'll hand that over to Doug.
Okay, so if I don't fully answer both questions, let me know. So the first part of that question was, how do I know what types of positions I'm qualified for? So I'll just jump out and say, we have many resources. You want to have a plan, like Rachel said. So sometimes we just start applying and we don't know where to start, so start small. And one resource that we offer is on our website and under student resources. We'll tell you more if you want to find out, but it's called What Can I Do with a Major in? And so if I type in master's in counseling, or if I type in accounting, bachelor's in accounting, it will tell me all these different fields I might qualify for. So first mistake, and I've done it, my undergraduate is in teaching. My first mistake is I didn't want to be a teacher, at the time, so I applied for every random job on the planet. So I need to stay focused on what my plan is. So find a plan first, read the job description thoroughly, because you want to know what I'm qualified for, and they'll be very specific, most of them. It will say, must have master's in this, or in this general area. Must have 3 years experience in X over here. So be very specific. And one thing I want to throw out there is, before I knew some of what I know now, I knew I was pretty awesome. Well, I thought I was anyways. And I thought I would be awesome at that job, but my resume didn't show it. So here I am with this teaching resume, and I think I'd be a great manager at the bank, but they don't know this does not equate. This does not make sense. So I have to help in my resume. I have to tailor my resume, let them know I could do that job because of this and this and this. And sometimes it's straight up down to funding. The funding actually says must have masters in psychology. And you might say I have a master's in education and be like, that's close enough. But they might have to hire the master in psychology. So that's something I didn't know until later on down the road. So sometimes I was applying for jobs that just because I thought I was qualified for, they weren't even legally able to hire me, even if they wanted to. The second part is should I consider entry-level position? Because trust me, when you get your master's, it's humbling to know I may have to start back at the front of the line again, or back of the line again, and apply for a job that I know my friend without a degree gets paid twice as much for. I have to start over again. But that's entry level. We have to start somewhere. So be willing to do that. And depending on industry, some industries you can jump out there. I won't start listing off specific industries, but some you can just jump out there, get paid here. Engineering is one of those. A lot of business majors are one of those. You can just jump out and start climbing the ladder. Counseling, I can say is not one of those, at least for me. For me, you start back at the bottom again, and that's okay. It's humbling, and that's where you get the best experience is those, I'm not saying entry levels at the bottom, but it is entry level for a reason. You start, you get great experience, and you work your way. Either you love it and you don't, well, you just stay there forever, or you work your way up depending on your overall goals. Now, if you're overqualified and you wonder, and I'm going to throw myself under the bus as well. I am not picky. If I'm unemployed, I'm working anywhere. And I've applied for some places with a bachelor's degree that didn't require anything, and I did not get any phone calls back. Kind of hurt my feelings. And I thought, why would you not hire me? I'm clearly overqualified. But that's the problem. They know that's not a fit. They know I'll work there for 2 weeks until I find my next best thing. And it's not a good investment on their time. So you just have to be very specific. Be okay with entry-level positions. Be okay with just whatever your degree and your experience actually aligns you with. And I can't emphasize enough. Most of my resume, the most solid experience is when I got paid the least. I mean, the smaller salary, the more I learned. I'm still learning, of course, but I wouldn't have been in this job if it wasn't for several entry-level positions. And so it's a humbling experience. But that's my best personal advice I could give you is just be open to anything. Because the question that most people ask, how do I get 3 to 5 years of experience without 3 to 5 years of experience? Like, that's where those entry-level positions come in. That is all.
And I'm just going to elaborate a little bit more. What about the entry-level positions that require experience? Do y'all have any tips on those?
I would say, I'm just going to dive in there. And Doug, I see that you had your hand raised. I just beat you to the punch. So I've been in that similar position. This is I assume this is an entry-level position, but you want 3 to 5 years experience. It's like they arbitrarily put that number on there. And what I've later found and did find is that that's not really the entry-level position that I needed to shoot for. Sometimes it is the position, as Doug mentioned, without the degree. And so therefore I may have these 2 degrees and I don't have the experience just yet. So I'm just waiting for an opportunity for somebody to give me an opportunity to get that experience. And so then you take a job that maybe doesn't require the bachelor degree. Maybe it requires an associate's degree or just a high school diploma, but it's in the field that you want to get into. if you can get that position, then you can work your way up quicker because you do have the accelerated degrees, and then you'll start seeing the fruits of your labor and the fruition come to be. It's easy to say here because I've worked through that and I overcame it. It's hard, I understand, sitting in your position trying to figure that out and navigate that, but being as open-minded as you can, and looking at how to get some experience that may come in a different way. Sometimes it's even volunteer experience. It's probably not the number one place that I would go, but I would, if you're genuinely wanting to work with a certain industry and population, then maybe you do a job to pay the bills and you volunteer or do some learning, get connected with somebody in the industry where you can kind of learn and maybe take some get some online courses where you can get some badges are taken care of, and then that way you can go back and say, I have tried to create an environment where I am getting experience, and it's not even through my paid position. So it does take some creativity. It also takes some openness, and without knowing the specific situation, I'm going to stop talking. Doug, you had something else you want to say.
Use my answer. No, I was going to emphasize the experience isn't always have to be a paid position. And that's sometimes what we get confused about as well. Is this, sometimes it does, but often it doesn't. It's volunteer, it's internships, as we all have re-emphasized. And a lot of times it's just internships. And a lot of times people wait till the last minute to think about internship. But I know my first career job wouldn't have been possible without my internships. Because I would have zero experience. So sometimes that's just all you need just to get your foot in the door. So that was pretty
You mind
much
if I pick back on that?
Yeah.
So a lot of our tips, they work really well for us in all situations, but we do recognize that right now you might need to tweak a little bit because we are still in the pandemic. It's still very present in all of our lives. And so if you are listening to this advice and you'd really like to maybe delve into it more, maybe we didn't quite touch your specific situation, just know that you can call our office, and we do have our virtual career cafe that you can hop in on and ask questions, and that goes for our alumni as well as our current students. And if you're an alumni, don't feel bad reaching out to your alma mater. We're here for you, whether or not you are currently taking classes with us or not.
Thank you all. We are going to jump into the last live question. Abigail asks, is it better for your resume to be super detailed or should it be more general? Marcus.
So that is a great question. One thing you might have heard us say several times on this is to have a tailored resume. So what you want to make sure and do is you want to create a resume that is designed specifically for the job that you are going to be applying to. And the more detail you can put into your resume that pertains to the job duties from the job description, the better. So you'll find a lot of online applications now will have an ATS or an applicant tracking system that'll scan your resume for keywords. And without those keywords, you won't even make it onto the hiring manager's desk. So it is very important to make sure and add those details in on your resume.
Thank you. Okay, so does anyone want to elaborate on that before I jump into the conclusion?
I do.
Okay.
So one other thing about the detail versus general, just like Marcus said, you're going to want to make sure that you align your experiences and you explain your experiences and any of the knowledge bases that you have. You want to put that on your resume as detailed as possible. You don't want to have a 5-page resume. A resume is shorter than a curriculum vitae. So a curriculum vitae is pages and pages of everything that you've ever done. A resume is a very tailored, targeted approach So if you think of a target and a bullseye and trying to hit the bullseye, that's what a resume is. So it's going to be condensed. It's not going to have everything that you've ever done, but it may have a line item or two that explains or that points to, there's some other things that I've done, but I'm not going to go into quite the detail. The last thing I was going to talk about is the resume itself and the wording. So there's a difference in putting responsible for cashier duties and executed cashier duties such as making change and nightly deposits. That's a very detailed approach to the tasks and the duties that you are responsible for. So the more that you can make it action oriented and start your bullets with action verbs, the better off you're going to be, because that's going to speak to the reader at how you connect to the position. And for more information on how to make your resume more active and less passive, check out our website. Again, everything's on our website. The resume book has many examples of using strong action verbs to articulate your skills and your marketable skills.
Thank you both. I just want to thank everyone for tuning in and watching today as we discussed the 5 phases of the job search. I hope we were able to answer your questions, and if you need to watch it again, you can watch the replay, and it'll also be posted on our YouTube channel fairly soon. So although we may not have addressed all your questions, or maybe you think of questions to ask later on, please attend our virtual career cafe where you can ask us anything, career related, and we'll be very happy to help you there. Once again, I want to let you know that we will post the resources referenced in this session later, and please be sure to tune into the remaining sessions of the series and submit your questions through the survey link. And I will post that in the comments, and you can access that after I post this on the Facebook. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and thank you again for tuning in.
Bye.